Hi, I'm Roxy Keller, and I am continuing to bake my way through the Great British Baking Show challenges. This is from season 2017, and it's week 9 or Patisserie week. This is the Showstopper challenge, which is the third challenge of the weekend, and the bakers were asked to make meringue sculptures. Now, showstoppers are supposed to be grandiose centerpieces, so the bakers were required to make two different kinds of meringue, either French, Italian, or Swiss meringue, and then form them, bake them into some type of structure. In addition, they needed to make some curds or creams or mousses, something to balance the sweetness of the meringue with the acidity or the tartness of those mousses and creams. So I am going to make a pyramid out of Swiss meringue, and I'm only going to do one kind of meringue because I don't need a giant centerpiece. It's a lot of eggs to use, and I plan on taking it to school or work for people to eat, but I just don't know if they're just going to want to eat that much meringue. In addition to my four-sided pyramid, I'm going to place that on top of a 10-inch round cake. So the pyramid is going to be this shape on each side. This is 6.5 inches, and this is 1.5 times 6.5 inches. And so I'm going to make 4 of these for the sides, and then to decorate, hopefully I'll have enough meringue left that I can make some sort of Egyptian symbols like a scarab beetle, a sphinx, a death mask, a canopic jar that would go in the center of this. I'll stick it on with some royal icing. And yeah, I mean, I know they don't have those on real pyramids, but I thought it would make a nice decoration. In addition to the pyramid made out of meringue, this 2-layer cake is going to be a lemon and tarragon flavored cake with a very thin layer of lemon frosting. And inside, I'm going to make a blackberry mousse and a raspberry gelée. So all of those, lemons, blackberries, and raspberries, are acidic, but they'll also have sugar, so they're not going to be too astringent. But hopefully they'll go with the meringue if people want to eat the meringue with it. On the outside of that 2-layer cake, I'm going to put some crushed up cookies that look like sand. So I'm going to make some shortbread cookies, crush those up, and then put that all around the cake so that it looks like sand. And then the pyramid will sit on top of that. So hopefully that will all work, and this will be really cool. The cake recipe I'm using is from a website called Preppy Kitchen, and I have a subscription to his website. I get lots of great recipes that I've used, which all turn out really well. So this is lemon cake, like I said, with lemon frosting, and this recipe is for 2 8-inch layers, but in order to fit my pyramid on, I need to make 10-inch. So I have 2 10-inch cake tins, and I cut out the parchment paper to go on the inside using a roll of parchment paper, drawing a pencil circle around, cutting inside that pencil circle, and spraying the bottom, placing that piece of parchment round in, spraying on the top. I have 2 of those ready. I'm going to make the lemon cake first because I want that to bake, cool. I can remove those from the pan and then have the pans ready to fill out or make the mold for the blackberry mousse and the raspberry gelée. Then I'll make the meringue that can go in the oven at a lower temperature. Now, I don't know how they expected the bakers to make meringue in the 4 or 5 hours that they gave them. Maybe it's possible, I don't know. But yeah, they gave them 4 hours and 45 minutes. I guess if they did the meringue first, but then you're supposed to bake a meringue for 1 to 2 hours, depending on the size of the pieces, depending on if you want a chewier meringue, you take it out earlier. If you want a crunchier meringue, you leave it in longer. But either way, you're not supposed to just take it straight out of the oven when it's done. You're supposed to open the oven door, let it cool very slowly, and most recipes say cool it overnight and then use it. Otherwise, you'll have cracks. Almost all of the bakers had some cracks, and maybe they just were okay with that. I don't know. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make the cake layers. I'm going to make the meringue, put it in the oven, let it cook slowly, open the door, leave it overnight, and then I'm going to assemble everything tomorrow. So let's get started. I'll start by mixing the dry ingredients in a medium to large mixing bowl. And I'm going to do 1.5 times the volume that he has on this recipe, since mine are 10-inch layers instead of 8. So we're starting with 450 grams of all-purpose flour, 2 1/4 teaspoons of baking powder, 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking soda. Since I'll use salted butter, I'm just adding 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Whisk that together. Now, into the bowl of the stand mixer, I'm adding 340 grams of butter. I'm using salted butter. And that's 3 sticks. I'm going to cream that with the paddle mixer on medium speed until creamy. While that's creaming, I'm going to zest 3 lemons. To the creamed butter, I'll add 450 grams of white granulated sugar and the zest of 3 lemons, which is supposed to be about 3 tablespoons. It's about 30 grams. Now it says to beat that until light and fluffy, and that's supposed to take about 5 minutes. That's creamy. Now I need to add 2 tablespoons of vanilla. Since I did 1.5 times the recipe, I need 4.5 eggs, so I put 4 whole eggs plus an egg white. And I'm going to add these one at a time. He actually says to scrape down the sides between every egg. Oh, sure, why not? Now I need 1.5 cups or 360 milliliters or 360 grams of buttermilk. I don't have buttermilk, so I use 1.5 cups of regular milk and add 1.5 tablespoons of vinegar. To give it even more acidity, I need to add the juice of 3 lemons. All of this acid will, some chemical reactions will happen in there and give off oxygen, lifting the cake or making it lighter. Now, with the mixer on low speed, I'll add about 1/3 of our flour dry ingredients, then half of this, then 1/3, then half, then 1/3. You try to be so precise when you measure, and then you end up losing, and it doesn't matter. It'll be fine. If I ever go on one of those baking shows, I'll have to be okay with everything being a mess, because as it is right now, I have to clean up every time I spill stuff. It drives me crazy. And of course, I don't want to overmix this, right? Because I don't want it to start developing gluten. Okay, so that is mixed, and I need to divide the batter between my two pans. And I know how much my bowl weighs. So I'll put about 980 into each one of my pans. Now I'll just spread these out in the pans. Okay, my oven is preheated to 340 degrees. I might need a little less, but we'll go with that for now. And so these will probably take 40 to 45 minutes, maybe an hour. I don't know. I'll check them with a toothpick after about 45 minutes and take them out when the toothpick comes out clean. Into the oven. I've decided to make the blackberry mousse and the raspberry gelée in these 9-inch pans, and that way, with the cake being 10-inch and these being 9-inch, they won't stick out the edges when I'm trying to frost it. So yeah, so I'm going to make them in these 9-inch pans. The blackberry cheesecake mousse comes from a website called Snixy Kitchen, and she uses whole, fresh blackberries in her mousse, but I don't like the seeds. So I'm going to make a puree out of this over on the stovetop. Just simmer this with some water and bring it to a boil. Let it simmer for a couple of minutes, and I'll have my puree. This is a recipe for a soft mousse that's almost like a pudding, and it doesn't have any gelatin in it, but I'm going to add some gelatin to mine because I want it to be a stiffer mousse. Then for the raspberry gelée, you might recall that I've made this before, and I use a recipe from Chell Sweets. She calls it raspberry cake filling. And again, I'm pretty sure she says to strain out the seeds from the raspberries. So I'm going to do the same thing with the raspberries. I'm going to make a little sauce and then add the rest of the ingredients. Now, she only calls for cornstarch, and when I do only cornstarch, it doesn't get thick enough. So I'm going to use gelatin sheets. I'll use that in both of these. I have 312 grams of raspberries and 332 grams of blackberries. To each of these, I'm going to add half a cup of sugar, half a cup of sugar to each, and a quarter cup of water. I'm going to set these on medium heat. I'm going to add the zest of half a lemon to each one. And the juice of half a lemon. I want these both to come to a boil, and then I'll let them simmer for about 10 minutes. Raspberries are pretty soft, so they mash up pretty easily, but the blackberries are much stiffer, so I'm going to use this masher to mash the blackberries. Since it's already out, I may as well mash these as well. And I'm going to increase the temperature to medium-high. Get them up to boiling. Okay, these are boiling, so I'm going to lower the heat to medium-low and let those simmer for 10 minutes. Well, it turns out that the cakes only took about half an hour. Maybe because they're spread out more? I'm not sure. Anyway, they're done, so now they just need to cool. The raspberries have simmered for 10 minutes. So now I'm going to pour them through a mesh strainer. I just need to push them through. I need to make sure to get as much of that juice as I can. With a clean spoon, I'll scrape off the back. A few seeds get through, but not many. Now I'll do the same thing with the blackberries. Here are the blackberries. You know what I forgot to do? I forgot to put the tarragon in the lemon cake. I'm so bummed. Have to do it next time. Okay, so I rinsed out these pots. Still a little bit of blackberry juice, but no seeds, because I'm going to put the juice back in. I have 240 grams of blackberry juice. And 230 grams of raspberry juice. Since these liquids are so thin, the amount of grams is equivalent to the amount of milliliters, and you're supposed to add 1 gelatin leaf per 125 milliliters or half a cup of liquid. I'm not going to add any water to the blackberry puree since it's going to be part of the mousse, but to the raspberry, I'm adding 56 milliliters or grams. So now I have 286. So to the raspberry puree, I need to add 2 1/4 sheets of gelatin. So there's 2. And the third one, I just need to break it in half. And break the half in half, right? Or maybe I'll just cut it. Doesn't want to break. Okay, so 2 1/4 sheets in cold water. Now, so that they can bloom. Takes just a few minutes. Once the gelatin has bloomed, put that back in the liquid, put it on the stove top, and just bring that to a boil. Let it simmer for about 5 minutes, and then it'll be ready. Now 2 1/4 sheets for the blackberry. I really don't know how this is going to work out because I'm going to put the gelatin in here, let it bloom, put it in here, do the same thing on the stove top, then let it cool down but I'm not going to let it go to full gel stage because I need to add in the cream cheese and other ingredients to make it the mousse. And I don't know, hopefully when I set it up, it won't be too hard. We'll see. Okay, the gelatin is bloomed. Now this goes on the stove top, same thing. Okay, the raspberry and blackberry purees are cooling down, and when the raspberry is cool enough, in fact, I think it's cool enough to go ahead and pour it into this pan. So I'm just going to put some saran wrap in the pan. Raspberry puree into a 9-inch pan. This goes into the refrigerator to set. I cleaned the bowl of my stand mixer, and I need to add 2.5 cups of heavy whipping cream. I said on a previous episode that I didn't know how much milk fat was in heavy whipping cream. This one actually tells you it's 36% milk fat, so that's a lot. 2.5 cups of heavy whipping cream. Here's the other half. I'm going to whisk this with the whisk attachment until it forms stiff peaks. All right, I'm going to call that stiff peaks. Now the recipe calls for 8 ounces of cream cheese, but since I am doubling it, I need 16 ounces. Well, I don't have 16 ounces, so I'm doing 8 ounces of cream cheese and 8 ounces of mascarpone cheese. So now these go in. I feel like I need to switch to the paddle attachment, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have to clean this really well because next I'm going to make the meringue. So paddle attachment. Since I have sugar in the blackberry puree, I'm only going to add half the powdered sugar that it calls for. So I'm putting in 115 grams of powdered sugar. This bowl is a little small, but I've dirtied all my bowls. I also need to add 2 teaspoons of vanilla. Now I'm going to add in the blackberry puree. It looks a bit broken. Not really sure why. Tastes good. I'm going to try the sticky saran wrap this time. Certainly is better going in, but I don't know how it's going to be at coming out. My cream cheese was at room temperature, and the whipped cream was cold. Is that why it looks broken? I don't understand. If you add the cream cheese when it's cold, it's going to be lumpy. I don't know. Well, I'm going to clean up now so that I can do the meringue. Okay, let's see if I can make Swiss meringue. I need 5 egg whites, and it's supposed to weigh about 150 grams. These have been sitting out for the last few hours. Well, I guess my eggs have big egg whites because that's 170 grams. I'm just going to go with it. Now I need 250 grams of white granulated sugar. I'm going to use 283 grams since I have extra egg whites. Now I'm going to whisk these together on the stovetop. I have a pot of boiling water. It's only about that deep, so I'm making a double boiler. And I'm going to whisk constantly until it reaches 160 degrees Fahrenheit. And I can't let it touch the water. The goal here is to cook the egg whites and melt the sugar. So far, it's about 101. Okay, we finally got there. Okay, now that goes on the mixer. I'm going to add half a teaspoon of cream of tartar. This is supposed to stabilize the egg proteins. And a tablespoon of cornstarch. Now I'm supposed to mix this until stiff peaks are achieved. Definitely not stiff yet. I think we're there. It's pretty stiff. Delicious. So these are my pyramid shapes, and I want them to stay still. I'm just going to put a drop of meringue just to keep them in place. Now I'm going to stick a piece of parchment over. So the original plan was to make this pyramid and then use my new airbrush to color it, but I don't have an airbrush booth yet. So my next option was to color the meringue, but I would need to split it because I don't want these necessarily colored the same color. And then I thought I would, for these, I would just color them with a little bit of food coloring. I don't know if that'll work, if that would just melt them. I'm not sure. But since I'm not sure if I have enough, I'm just gonna make everything white. When I get my airbrush booth, then I'll be able to do that in the future. I'll airbrush in the future. So I'm going to put a coupler in here so that I can use different tips. Doesn't that look delicious? Okay, so for the pyramid, I'm using a number 28 star tip. Let's see how this goes. I think I'll add some what looks like bricks or stones, whatever they called those things they used to build them. Stones. When I watch people on the shows do these, their meringue always looks so much stiffer. Okay, I'm going to do the other tray. Hopefully I have enough, at least to do the pyramid. I'm going to put on a number 5 round tip just to see if I can do a little bit of this this mask. It's not going to look like anything, is it? Maybe I can do the scarab beetle. Just all sort of blends together. I saw some flowers that were made with a star tip. When you get them all together, they look like flowers. Okay, I have the oven preheated to 200 degrees. So I'll put these in for an hour and a half and then turn off the oven and crack open the door and just leave it to cool on its own. And then I'll put this together tomorrow. Well, good morning. At least it's morning for me. The meringues turned out very well. Here is the one tray, and a couple of these got damaged as I was putting them in, so The only thing that cracked was one of these sort of flower things that I made right at the end. I haven't tried to lift up the walls yet, but I'll try that pretty soon. The raspberry gelée is set. It's very thin, so I don't know how easily it's going to come out of the pan. We'll see. The cake is sitting over there covered with some saran wrap. And the blackberry mousse, it's okay, like I could eat it, but it doesn't have much of a blackberry flavor, so I think maybe I needed to double the amount of blackberry. And it's set probably hard enough to go inside of a cake, but again, because it curdled or whatever it did, I need to read up on that, or if someone knows what happened, please let me know. So I am not going to use that. I have, a couple of weeks ago, I planned to make a roll cake and didn't work out. So I had already made the strawberry filling for it. So this is similar to that blackberry mousse, and it's delicious. It's still acidic. I froze it with plastic on it, so it's fresh. It's still good. So I might use that in the lemon cake to add another flavor. We'll see. Now, the only other thing that I haven't yet made is the shortbread. You'll recall that I forgot to put tarragon in my lemon cake, so I've decided to make a lemon tarragon shortbread. This will be the crumb coating on the outside to represent sand, and can't hurt to have little bits of green in it. There are dots of green in the desert in certain places. So I'm going to use the ratio of flour, butter, and sugar that I learned from my favorite podcaster, Ren, on home baking. And historically, shortbread had a 3-to-1 ratio by mass of flour, butter, and sugar. But people have been trying different ratios to make it more crumbly, more, the British like to say unctuous, meaning, I don't know, tastes really good, has a really good feel in the mouth, very rich. So I'm going to use her most recent ratios of 8-7-4, and I'm going to start with 2 sticks of butter, which is 16 tablespoons. Even though I know this is going to come to 226 grams because each stick is 113 grams, I'm going to go ahead and weigh it. And then I'll use that number to calculate how much flour I need. And this is ratio by weight or grams. Interesting, it only came to 111, that first stick. We'll see about this one. 223 grams. And the reason I cut it up and put it in this bowl is because this was not at room temperature. I took it right out of the refrigerator. So I'm going to soften that a bit in the microwave. Okay, so to figure out how much flour I need, I'll take the weight of the butter, which was 223 grams, divide that by 7, and then multiply that by 8. So I need 255 grams of all-purpose flour. It's interesting that one of the first things I made when I started expanding my baking range was to try Ren's pink peppercorn and ruby chocolate shortbread. At that time, she was using the 3-to-1 ratio, and so I just wanted to double check if there were other ingredients. And of course, besides the flour, butter, and sugar, there are a few other ingredients. So I'm going to do mine with lemon zest and tarragon. The other interesting thing about shortbreads is that you don't typically use your stand mixer. You do what they call rubbing in the butter. So basically you use your hands to press the butter and the flour together. if you're making a cake, that's called the reverse creaming method, because the flour molecules or flour parts stick to the butter, or the butter sticks to the flour, and that keeps the flour from developing gluten. So it's supposed to make a really light and airy cake. And I'm not real sure why they do it here. I think it's supposed to be really crumbly, or what they call short. And but you can also use your food processor. So I'm going to use a food processor. Into the bowl of the food processor, I'm putting 255 grams of all-purpose flour. Add the butter into the food processor. Now I'll process this to crumbs. Okay, we'll call them crumbs. That's okay, they're mixed. So now I need 4 parts sugar, which is basically just half of whatever the flour was. So half of 255 is 128. Most recipes for making shortbread use powdered sugar, so that's what I'll use. 128 grams of sifted powdered sugar. Now I'm adding the 128 grams of sifted powdered sugar. It is getting crumbly, so now I'm gonna chop up the tarragon and zest a lemon. Zesting 1 lemon, and I don't know about you, but how do you clean your fruits and vegetables? I always used to use that Fit spray, which is, I think, mostly like an orange citrus oil and a couple of other things. But then I learned how you can put your vegetables and fruits in a bowl of water, add a little bit of baking soda, add a little bit of vinegar. It creates a reaction that just cleans things very well. So that's how I clean all of my fruits and vegetables now. And now the tarragon. Yes, I even washed this with the baking soda and vinegar. I've never used tarragon before. I know, it's crazy. But I'm guessing that I just want the leaves. So I'm just going to pull leaves off the stem. I'm going to taste it. They say it has a licorice flavor, and it definitely does. And I don't typically like licorice, but that tastes pretty good. I'm excited. I have no idea how much to add. Maybe about as much as I did lemon zest, which would be, I don't know, 10 grams or so. I really have Rin from Home Baking to thank for helping me think about expanding my flavor palette. She just released her 91st podcast, and she announced that she's only going to do 9 more, so a total of 100. It makes me sad, but she's going to do what works for her in her life. So I will just have to listen to all of them over again. I've already listened to all of them twice. So why not a 3rd time? She's so interesting and has such a nice voice, and she has so many things to teach me. Because she comes from a different background, and So she knows a lot about history of different countries, history of their religions, their food. And so I learned a lot from her. I've tried listening to other podcasts or watching other people, but I don't know. They're just not as interesting. So, okay. All right, tarragon. I don't know if this will weigh out, but let's see. That didn't even register. Oh, wait. It says 3 grams. Since this is going in a crumb coat, it probably wouldn't matter if I put more in. Let's blend it and see what it looks like. So all this has to do is press down into a baking pan. So I'll see how well it sticks together once I pull it out of here, but seems like it will pretty so far. Looks like a pretty good distribution of tarragon. I'll actually try the cookie in by itself, and then I'll know if that was enough. I have this 8-inch cake pan that it's actually 8.5. I'm going to add a piece of parchment paper, give it a spritz of some baking spray. Especially in the corners, since that parchment doesn't reach all the way. You can put this in whichever kind of pan you like. You can do a square pan if you prefer to cut out little squares or rectangles. I've seen shortbread cut out in little pie piece shapes. For the most part, right, I'm going to crumble this up anyway, so it doesn't really matter. I'm going to see first if I can pull this together, if it's going to press nicely, which I think it will. Some of that tarragon got down to the bottom, so that gives me confidence that my food processor was doing a pretty good job of processing, mixing, blending everything. Yeah, that did really well. Now I can press that down in here. I'm going to press this down with the back of a measuring cup. Might need a tiny bit of flour. Okay, now that needs to chill for an hour, and then I'll bake it at 375 degrees for 10 to 12 minutes. Okay, I have a turntable, and this is my display board. I have just used some shipping tape to tape it to the turntable, and I'll start with one of the layers. Smells good. This is my raspberry gelée that I mentioned. Is very thin, so I'm not sure. I do want to use this strawberry filling. It's so delicious, but it's still pretty stiff. So I'm going to use one of my, whatever this is made of, sort of a plastic fabric, Wilton bags, and see if I can pipe that on using a coupler. It's pushing the cake. I love it. Squeeze hard. That was beautiful. Oh, I love it. Let's do it again. See what happens when I put this raspberry gelée on. Hopefully it doesn't break too badly. Okay, that's pretty good. Now I just need to fill in the rest of it with the rest of the strawberry. Maybe I will use all the strawberry. That's okay. I know I didn't show you how I made it, and I know it's delicious, so I'll make sure to put the instructions in the episode description. That's all I have left. Nice. Now the top layer. With the layers together, I want to put a crumb coat, not crumbs, but the liquidy coat all around to hold in the crumbs, ironically. So I'm just going to mix a bit of powdered sugar and water and lemon juice because I want that taste of lemon juice, and just use that to basically mash down all of the crumbs. I don't know if you can see all of these crumbs there, but I'm not going to make that lemon buttercream frosting. It's actually a cream cheese frosting because I don't have any more cream cheese. So I'm just going to use royal icing to coat it before I put the crumbs on. Hopefully that'll work. So royal icing is basically just powdered sugar, water, and meringue powder, which is dried egg whites plus a couple of other ingredients that when you're using royal icing on cookies, it will harden into a hard shell. I don't need the meringue powder. So obviously I'm not weighing this, I'm just sort of mixing it till it gets to the right texture. And if it gets too thick, I'll just add a little bit of water. It's kind of perfect for what I want to do with it. I do have the issue of the icing not coming all the way out to the edge. So I could make a lemon American buttercream, and that would be fine. Maybe I'll do that. We'll see. But I still need this crumb coat either way. Just need to do that a little more, with a little more finesse, as they say. Just going to clean this off. Okay, I'm going to go put this in the freezer, and then we'll see what I can do with that meringue. Okay, I mentioned before that what I wanted to do was airbrush some colors on these. I just got an airbrush and some airbrush colors, but I didn't think to get the booth that you need so that the spray doesn't go everywhere. So I'll get one of those and be able to do that another time. But it would be nice if I could color these a little bit. And my guess is that it takes, you can only use powder color. I actually have one powder color, it's yellow. I'm just going to try it and see what it looks like. I have some little decorating brushes. I'm just going to practice on this one right here. Other than the fact that this is a little bit cracked, that does actually work. Like I said, I only have that one color. So I just want to see what happens when I try to use a liquid. I would probably need to dilute it. Well, okay, if I dilute it with a little water, it doesn't seem to be melting the meringue. What if I used on the pyramid, what if I did yellow and then just did a few highlights of brown? That could be cool. Well, now we know. Do I want to see if this will unstick first? I am seeing a couple of small cracks. Okay, well, it came out pretty well. I already lifted these up because I just couldn't wait. I might be able to paint a face on that, and this little scarab beetle lost one of his antennae, but okay. I think I'm going to use the yellow to paint the walls of the pyramid, then highlight them with some brown. I'll use this bigger brush. Pretty good. It'd be funny if the judges said, "Oh, you have some cracks." Will the pyramids have cracks? Right? While I'm at it, I think I'll do the other two balls of pyramids. The pyramid. The shortbread dough has chilled for an hour, so I'm going to put this in the oven and set the timer for 12 minutes. I want the shortbread to be golden brown on the edges, so it might take 15, 16 minutes, we'll see. Okay, now I'm going to see what I can do with just a little bit of highlighting with the brown, watered down brown. Two down, two to go. Okay, now I think they're done. Certainly golden on the edges, so I want to be kind of abstract. Can't be too precise on this, I think. Since my meringue is not very precise. If nothing else, I feel like I should get the eyes right. I feel like I would probably have to do this a couple times to figure out exactly how I want it or how it would look best. I'm not an artist, so this is all just flying by the seat of my pants. And yeah, just sort of trying it and seeing how it turns out. Trying to put a nose on there so it doesn't look completely bizarre. Oh no, it's breaking apart. Like I said, I'm not an artist. Okay, scarab beetle. Last but not least, On this one, just the texture of the meringue is super weird. Again, the contestants, the bakers, they get to practice this a few times before they do it on the show, so that hopefully they don't completely embarrass themselves like I'm doing right now. All right, I think I'm ready to let it dry and then put this thing together. Remember my little tester? All right, so it's chewy on the inside. Crunchy on the outside. So that's the way I wanted it. There are people like it different ways, and I think if you bake it longer, the inside won't be chewy. And probably with the thinner pieces over there, they probably mostly won't be chewy, but still pretty good. I ended up putting the shortbread back in the oven for another 10 minutes because it was pretty much raw in the middle and it hadn't even really cooled down all the way, so I figured it would be okay. Looks much better now. It's golden brown across the whole top. Now I'm going to make the lemon buttercream. I am using the recipe from Preppy Kitchen, except I'm only making half of the amount, and he uses half butter, half cream cheese, but I don't have any cream cheese, so I'm just using butter. And so for half the recipe, I need 226 grams of butter, so that's 2 sticks, and I'm using unsalted butter. So I do use unsalted butter when I make frostings. I'll cream that with the paddle attachment. To the creamed butter, I'll add the zest of half a lemon and the juice of half a lemon. Mix that. And 420 grams of powdered sugar. I'm going to sift it. The recipe actually said to alternate adding the powdered sugar and the lemon juice. But I'm going to add the powdered sugar now, and let's hope this shield does a little bit of a good job. It does also say to add half a teaspoon of vanilla, and that's for the full batch. I'm going to go ahead and add half a teaspoon. My friend Dawn brought me this clear vanilla from Mexico, and it won't give any little brown tint to my frosting. So thanks, Dawn. The last thing I need to make before I assemble this structure is royal icing. I'll need that to stick the walls of the pyramid together and to stick my scarab beetle and mask onto the pyramid. I'm hoping to make more than I need, so I'm just putting it straight into one of these little Rubbermaid containers. I'm going to put 240 grams of powdered sugar. This is meringue powder, sugar, dried egg whites, cream of tartar, cornstarch, natural vanilla flavor, and other natural flavors. So I'm using 1.5 tablespoons of meringue powder. To that, it says we'll need 4 to 5 tablespoons of water, And so you'll add water depending on what your consistency is that you want. I guess I kind of want a medium consistency because if you were making cookies, your border would be sort of a thick consistency, and then your flood would be a thinner consistency. But I kind of want something in between, I think. One, two, three. Well, I'm glad I stopped at 3. So I think that might be a good consistency. I'd call it the ribbon stage, because it's making little ribbons in the icing before it settles in. Okay, I'm going with that. 3 tablespoons. Here's my shortbread. Still looks maybe slightly less than done on the bottom. I can barely taste the lemon, and I don't think I taste the tarragon. If I was on a competition show, they would say, if you say it's going to be in there, make sure it's in there. So I think I need a lot more. Other than that, it has a really good flavor. Let's see if I can make crumbs out of this. I'm curious to know how much I have and how much I'll use, so we'll see. 383 grams. Okay, I think I have everything ready, so I'm gonna go get the cake. I'm gonna start with the frosting. Remember, I'm going to cover this with cookie crumbs, so it doesn't have to be perfect, and it doesn't have to be so thick that you don't see the underneath at all. I love this. I love this because I can clean up that bottom and clean off the display board all at the same time. Whew, okay, that was the easy part. I'm going to try to catch the overflow crumbs. Just make a little bit less of a mess. The easiest way to do this would be to pick, well, the best way to make it easy to put the crumbs on would be if I could pick up the cake without the display board, but I'm not doing that. So here we go. I have never crumbed a cake before, so except, did I do some, I think I did an episode earlier on that may have had some crumbs on it, I can't remember. Clearly I haven't done it very often, So if I'm doing something completely stupid, please let me know so I can not do that. In addition to it looking like sand, it will also add a little crunch to the bake, to the bite. I started with 383 grams of crumbs and ended up with 208, which means I used 175 grams of crumbs. That's good to know because next time I don't need to chop up as much. I can just eat them. I wish I had someone here to help me, because now is the scary part, putting this pyramid together. Already something broke. That tip just broke off. The edges don't really match up perfectly. So I guess I just have to glue them where they end up. The best part about the inside being chewy is that when they crack, they're not just coming apart because the inside is sticking together. I'm gonna go print out the base, the 6.5-inch square. That will help me. This is the third one now to break right at that. I don't know why the tips are all breaking off. It's so weird. Well, I better get it together and take a picture before it's too late. Here's my 6.5-inch by 6.5-inch square. I'm also thinking I should go ahead and stick these on because I may not be able to put any pressure on them or whatever when I get them up there, so that's already stuck. I have a feeling I'm going to need a lot more royal icing, so I'm going to give myself a larger tip. And I'm just going to have to start gluing like crazy. Let's pretend I have 2 minutes left in the show. Just got to go with it. This is exactly what you see on the show, isn't it? I really don't understand why those tips are breaking like that. Okay, we're just going to let these two sit first. So if you're wondering why I'm not freaking out and crying, well, if I run the show, I probably would. But since I'm in front of probably the 2 people that watch me watch these episodes, I'm not that worried about it. Okay, I'm done. Do I have a meringue sculpture? Yes, I do. Do I have some creams, compotes, gelees? Yes, I do, and they are delicious. Did it turn out how I imagined? No. Would I have gotten it done in the time for the competition? No, not even close. But this was my first time making a meringue sculpture. So, you know, I can't be too mad at myself. I know the cake's going to be good. I think if I were in the competition and I had made it in time, I think this would hold up until time for judging. So, do I call it a success? Yes, I do. Mostly because I tried something new. It was partially successful. I learned a lot. So the next time I try, I should be able to do much better. What more can I ask for? Some things didn't go right, obviously, in the sculpture, but even in the cake, there were some things that didn't go right. The blackberry mousse, I'll know to try to make that differently next time. This is the first time I'd ever made Swiss meringue. I've made Italian meringue before. Swiss meringue is different. It takes a long time on the stove, but I really like how it turns out. I think I need to whisk it a little bit longer for it to be a little bit stiffer, but I call it a success. Okay, so that's the end of this episode. The next episode is the first challenge of the finale, and it's signature week. And I think, if I remember correctly, the bakers have to make 3 different kinds of bread. And yeah, I think I'll be able to do that. So, Showstopper, centerpiece.